Anytime, Mayor. Let's go.
Call order of a work session, Goodyear City Council. Monday, May 10. All items listed are for discussion only. No action can or will be taken. All members of council are here this evening. We have one item on our agenda, and that's the review the current policies, compliance with those policies, and discuss recommendations with John Fishbach. John?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. We are going to cover three areas tonight. The city center funding options that you asked about last week. We did some work on that. Comparisons, which you asked about last week, also of employee compensation and benefits, a review of our financial policies, and any council discussion or questions that you might have. First, on the city center phase 1 tax restructuring, we were asked last week what would the impact be to our property tax rate if we proceeded with city center. And then two, in order to mitigate that increase, what resulting decrease in sales taxes, the rate, to ensure no net increase to the resident of Goodyear. And then third was the impact to the general fund. So I just want to remind you the city center, and we were also directed by the council to go back to original phase 1. That's City Hall, Library, Civic Park, and that's on the northwest corner of Yuma Road and Estrella Parkway. Also, as a reminder, phase 1 was going to cost $50.5 million. Originally, it was going to cost $67 million, but as the economy turned worse, our development team, which is Lankford and Associates, Carrier Johnson Architects, Hensel Phelps Construction, and JMI Sports, worked with the staff to continue to get it down to the 50.5 range. And from this point forward, we will be discussing the $38 million, which is the GO bonds that are necessary for this. You'll see that in the gold near the bottom. GO bonds buildings, $28 million, and GO bonds infrastructure for $10 million. General obligation bonds, this yellow line is the assessed value. And you see that in 2013, there is insufficient assessed value to support the existing debt of the city. And then the blue is the $38 million additional if we were to bond it, and you also directed that we do this on a conventional basis, 25 years, and so we estimate at 5% interest. Excuse me. And on that, you can see that where the assessed value is going, you can see it's continuing to go down, and then it gradually goes up. We project a 2% increase per year. Who knows? But at 2021, according to this slide, things are sort of back to normal. And we will also, as we've committed to you previously, be reviewing this each year so that we can see how it's doing.
Well, John, how do we handle then the fact that we're going to be, what was it, 2013? Upside down, 2013.
That's
with existing debt.
Yes, so we have to handle it by going to the general fund.
Okay.
And we're prepared to do that. I think at the worst is about $750,000 upside down. So.
Now, how is that going to affect the proposed budget?
The proposed budget won't affect it at all. No.
John, I have a question. If you go back to that slide, I was just thinking, if we were talking about some of those media billboards, is that any revenue in there planned in that, or is that separate? Or is
we
that
have no revenue planned in the present budget for the media billboards.
Is that something you can designate towards a city center or something? Can you?
You could if you chose to, yes. Right now, we've talked in terms of just the general fund, but the council can designate it if they want to towards anything you want.
Okay.
Do we have a flavor for what that is yet, though?
We do not.
So we have no idea yet how much money that's going to generate?
No. We're trying to get some background right now. This shows the property tax adjustment analysis. If we were to pay for the bonds from the property tax, we would have to raise our rate by 5 cents excuse me, in 10-11, that's $1.65. Then it would have to go up 35 cents to $1.95, and then 55 cents to $2.15 for 2 years, and then $2.10 for 2 years. And
Now-
that's to pay back $2.8 million a year in property tax debt, and that's what that calculation is. Joe, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. We were going to discuss that tonight because our current policy is $1.60.
Yes.
So we'd discuss on whether that policy stays at $1.60 or not.
Yeah, and I'm not advocating this, I'm just responding
No,
to
I
the
understand.
question.
No, I understand.
This shows the results, the reduction in the general fund of $2.8 million to pay the debt, and then the net new increased O&M costs for the City Hall, Library, and the infrastructure park is $0.7 million in 10-11, 700,000, 700,000 in 11-12, 1.2, 1.5, and 1.8 subsequently. So the total impact to the general fund would be $3.5 to $4.6 million.
Now that is, if we would pay for the city center, principal and interest?
Yes.
Principal and interest, and if we would pay for the city center out of the GO bond and reimburse or keep the tax actual dollar, the amount of money that's raised at the same level, right? You'd raise the property tax, but you'd lower the retail sales tax.
And now, yes,
And that's what this is saying here? Is that right?
the next one's saying it. But this one is saying what the impact will be, so we have to lower the sales tax by the $3.5 million.
That's what I thought. Okay.
And this shows the budget and the impact on the budget. And you'll see that we added a column. This is the balanced budget that we had presented last week. We adjusted for city center. You'll see that column. And then the circled number, the $50 million plus dollars, that is the number with the portion taken out for city center. And it's, well, that reduces the revenues by $2.8 million.
That's showing the 50, wait a minute. You're, okay, adjusted for city center, meaning you took out the sales tax? Is that what you're
Yes.
saying? Yes, okay.
How about the .7 for operation? I thought it was a 3.5 hitter. You're getting to that.
I'll get to that right there.
Okay.
Then what I'm doing is reviewing the numbers that changed on this. So this one would be 48,788. That's the 700,000 for the O&M. So that adds to that. Then these two figures change next. The subtotal is still positive 1.76 million from an operating standpoint instead of 5.26 million. But the structural deficit that we have been referring to goes from 4 million to 3,505,000, or to 7,505,000.
So in other words, if we did this, John, we'd be lowering our general fund money to take on more debt, in essence, right?
That's correct, yes. Then this one, unfortunately, doesn't show up on the screen. The bottom number that's circled there is, and you can see it on the handouts, but it's very small, is $2.2 million in the hole versus $1.28 million to the good. The proposed budget I have submitted to you is $1.28 million to the good, and this would put us $2.2 million in the hole.
So if I'm looking at this correctly, John, even if we could find 2.2 million, next year's budget, we'd have to figure out how to cover 7.5.
Not exactly, because we have the 4.05 to cover right now.
Okay.
But that's not covering it because it is in balance in the above numbers, but what the 4.05 is coming from the reserves.
Well, let me ask it a different way. If we have a 4.0 structural deficit going forward, and we have 1.2 fund balance as proposed, next year, assuming, again, maybe hopefully things will turn around, but assuming everything stays flat, you've got 1.2 to cover the 4.0 structural deficit, and you've got to figure out how to cover the 2.8.
That is correct.
Okay, now, under this plan here, you've got 2.2 with a $7.5 million structural deficit up there.
That's correct.
All right. So if things don't turn around next year, everything staying equal, you got a much larger problem to fix the structural deficit.
That is correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure I'm understanding what you're
Okay.
putting up here.
Okay, now,
Just, let's take a minute, I'm not,
This isn't my eyes, right?
No, I can't.
if we went to $1.60 and then gradually to $2.10, okay, we would raise enough money to fund City Center, get it underway.
yes, on the property taxes, yes.
Okay. Now, however, if we attempt to reduce that level of taxation through reduction of another tax, we end up in this position. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Does this include using the contingency fund at all?
No, it does not.
And it doesn't include cutting operating costs for the city?
Not this table, no.
No. Okay, so if we could reduce the cost of government, we could make up for some of that increase in structural deficit,
Yes,
correct?
that's correct.
Mr. Mayor, how are we going to do that? How are we going to reduce government spending?
Well,
Now, you've been talking about it for the last 3-4 months, okay? And you have not come up with any idea of where we can do these things. And I'm just asking you a question. Can we do these?
okay, what we can do is we need to look at furloughs. The vehicle replacement fund of $1.5 million may not have to be done this year. There's other things that are planned in this budget that if we cut back on some of those, we could save quite a bit of money. The biggest savings, council member, is in people. And if we can cut the cost of people, then we can do more. And that's what I resent what you said, because I told you this a year ago when I read to this council a 3-page paper about what I thought needed to be done. And those things still are applicable today.
You're just hearing something here today that really does. You're playing around with the tax dollar, and that you're robbing Peter to pay Paul. Basically,
No,
that's what it
No, no. And I think if, in fact, we did change the tax structure, we should definitely have a period where the increase is eliminated. It isn't that we'll look at it again at X fiscal year, that particular increase goes away. We also could come up with a plan here that we ask for the citizens to vote. Why not do that?
Vote on what?
Vote on a tax increase and a decrease in another tax form. For example, raise the property, reduce the retail sales.
And you feel that the increase in tax, that the public would welcome that?
No, well, how did they feel about it when you voted to increase it last year, Dick?
Well, 70% of the people were in favor of it.
What?
Where'd you get that?
I think they had it on the poll that they took. It's in the book.
No.
They got us.
I think 70% of the people may not have objected, is maybe how it was really interpreted.
Something like that, yes.
That, to me, is an affirmative then. But, no,
And I forgot,
What I'm trying to do here is, I think the future of this city should be tied more than anything to higher education. I think that's where we will excel in the future.
But that's what you.
If we, let me finish.
Sorry.
If we do not move on the city center in the very near future, the higher ed isn't going to come. They're going to go somewhere else. I don't care about a new city hall, Dick. Frankly, I don't. I just know that if we don't do the city center, the higher ed people aren't going to go there. So we have to build density in city center. That's what we're talking about here. We're trying to form a basis, a foundation for density so we can move this city ahead. And I'm trying to find out how can we rearrange our tax structure. What things can we do to make that more likely to happen, Dick? That's all I'm trying to do.
And my objection to your approach on higher education is that this city cannot fund an ASU coming here with us bearing $80 million of fee.
No, where we got to on that, and John was in one of the groups. First off, we have a group of private citizens and business leaders who formed a 501c3 to find grant money and philanthropy to help fund it. That 501c3 was funded by one of those citizens on his own. Another group worked out with ASU and Langford, and Langford was the key to success here. And it looks like we're in the range of $1 to $2 million a year for 5 years to fund a lease of a building built by Langford in the city center. The 35 to 50 million number is just wrong, seriously wrong. We're talking $1 million to $2 million, and that's still in negotiation. Well, it's not now. And if we drop the city center from further consideration for the next 36 months, write off higher ed. Write it off.
Well, do you agree with me that what you're asking from a standpoint of higher education is a dream that you have, okay? And I appreciate what you've done so far, Mayor, okay, for the city and for higher education. But, you know, we've not been able to maintain higher education here, as you know. I mean, people have left us because we couldn't find an answer to meeting their demands. And I just don't think we're ready for higher education in the city of Goodyear.
Yeah, the recession hurt the two colleges dramatically. They simply were unable to raise funds. And some of the connections they had did not pan out for them, connections that were going to derive millions for them. So it was a bad time, and they were relying on an organization and an individual who simply did not come through for them. Right now, we don't really have anything other than a physical therapy class in Franklin Pierce, which is doing quite well. But, that I can think of, if ASU comes here, and ASU wants to come here, then others will come with them.
I welcome them here if they're willing to match some funds with us.
Well, it did go from we won't provide any money to we'll provide some money, which is a breakthrough with Michael Crow. He got into Phoenix at no cost to himself. A couple of $100 million Phoenix paid for that campus. Now, that's a far better campus than we're going to have. It's a medical campus, I think legal. It has everything. But we're a small city just trying to get underway. ASU coming here was very important to us to recover from the difficulty experienced by the private higher ed. Now, there's reason to believe if ASU comes, private higher ed will follow them. However, if they don't come, I really fear that we've lost this opportunity. And we'll lose it to a city which moves ahead quicker than we do. And that's why I don't want us to be caught not moving forward, not trying to find a way to move forward. I don't know the answers, Dick, but I do know that I'm going to keep trying to find answers. And I think cutting the cost of government, your first point, is something we have to seriously look at. And I think a lot of people agree with me on that, frankly.
Can I ask, have we got any information from any other schools? Because I know right now Peoria has just done a committee, I believe, to start looking for a higher ed. U of A just went into Chandler in the old Motorola facility. So I would agree with the mayor. They are going other places and they are expanding. And I don't know if the sales tax, if we've looked at private schools to start and then do it the other way, get a private school. DeVry just went into Glendale because, again, to their Westgate City Center. And it seems like there could be money to be made and revenue and get businesses going and small businesses going if we could get something in here. Is there anyone that we've looked at? I know you were going to start looking into it and getting a private university maybe in here. Start it that way, or if that penny sales
We have
and
not started
tax
at the
passes.
present time, no.
Yeah,
But you have talked about it.
Oh, yeah.
And but the U of A, I've met with them, their president and others. Their model is different from ASU's, but they would love to provide technical engineering training to Lockheed Martin. That could be brought together. DeVry, Sherry, they were coming here, and they changed their mind. In fact, Joe just told me that he talked to someone. But we were talking to them a year or two ago, and they wanted to come to Goodyear, but apparently some of their folks opted for something else. People We have a fine reputation, and colleges would like to be here. But they aren't coming if we don't lay the foundation, I don't think. That's my whole point.
Okay, Mayor, the, what you were stating as a way that you see it panning out, I should say, that if we were to change the property tax structure and lower the sales tax, and in that way of finding $3.5 million because of that reduction of sales tax would be then furloughs or the,
Graduated pay cuts.
well, that, okay, furloughs and graduated pay cuts,
Yep. Consider them.
and also the,
Reducing staff.
no, you mentioned the depreciation account, the account to
Vehicle replacement.
vehicle replacement funds, okay, which is, it's $1.5 million, something like that?
This year, yes.
This year, so putting off to next year. Now, the problem, though, is that for the next few years, we continue to go down a slope. So that means each year, we have to come up with other ways to save more money. I mean, and towards the end, we're looking at another $1.1 million. So besides already, thoroughly hurting the structure of our employees by doing all those things, then putting off the vehicle fund for a year, which the next year we're still not going to have it. So there's got to be something else that's not going to cover it. I still see that there's still a hole, there's still a gap. I'm not even discussing right now doing that to employees. I'm just saying that
No.
we're looking, but trying to, we still have a hole. We still don't have it covered. You know how I feel about higher education. I'm right there with you. I think that in the long run, not only is it stability for our city, but it is an economic driver. I do believe that with you. But now, even if I'm truly not believing that there's a way for us to do this year. I'm having a hard time with it because not only structurally do we still have the problem, but I just, myself personally, would not go into this kind of debt. That's not the way I do business. I just don't go into this much debt. But the other thing, let's see, at the other end, for the schools themselves, in the past, it was, okay, we have to either build their building, which if we build City Center, we have no money to build them a building, or we have to help pay their lease payment. Well, we still won't have that money to pay a lease payment. So I still see too many gaps. I still see too many unanswered questions here. Where would that money come from?
Okay, that's,
See, we haven't had this discussion. We haven't heard what you've been talking about to know what's going on out there.
well, what I really want, Joanne, is I just want us to have made every possible attempt through creative financing and reduction of the cost of government to see how this can happen. Once we find out how it can happen and are sure of the data, then we can make a decision, a go, no-go decision. A go decision would probably best be handled by going to the people and asking them to vote on it, because it is going to cost them something. I agree. But I don't think you go to the people and ask them to raise their property tax without showing that you've reduced their taxes in some other area.
Well, I would not.
So that's
I've
the
already
only way
taken
you
the
can
tough
do it.
decision with sales tax. I'm not doing it with property tax. That will be their decision. And I agree that, education is an economic driver. We've helped bring so many other businesses to Goodyear. I don't see why we wouldn't invest in education also. But that's the people's choice because they already pay it in other forms of taxes. I'm not doing double dipping on them. They need to make that choice.
But you also have to realize that the budget in our financial situation is very flexible and dynamic. What you could do when you go to the people, you say, basically, raise the tax this year, following year, et cetera, reduce the retail sales tax, some proportion of that, may not be able to be equal. But you also say that upon achievement of 1,200 permits a year, or something like that, we'll reduce that tax back to something else. And at 1,800, we'll reduce it or basically take it back to where it is today. Because you're going to be deriving more revenue as this economy converts into a more of a progressive inflationary economy versus the recessive we're in right now. So the economy is going to change. The city's going to be, the coffers are going to change. There's going to be more money coming in. We should be looking to that, expecting it to happen, but making it an alternative, that when and if it happens, we'll reduce that tax by a certain amount. And when and if it happens is not based on a fiscal year or a month. It's based on how many permits we're going to be getting. And we can actually price permits. We know that at 1,200 permits, we make X in construction sales tax. At 1,800, that's what I'm saying. It's not really that difficult. It just takes the time to plan it out with all details, the current status, and trying to prognosticate the future in the form of not years, but numbers. Once you achieve X, you do this. And if you tell the people that, our people here are very bright in this city, they just might agree with something like that.
Well, and I think that's their choice, and we should give that to them. I totally agree with that. What's difficult, too, though, is that you'll be just as Dick stated, you know, robbing Paul to pay Peter. In one form or another, that's what we're doing, because right now, as sales tax, we took on that tax increase, and truly, in a sense, it made it regional, because half of the people that come to Goodyear to pay are from somewhere else, and so it spread out. It spread it out. Now we're taking it away from the general public, which if universities come, it's going to be a regional public that will come to them. So we're going to stop that, and then we're going to ask only Goodyear citizens to fund something, whereas right now it's everybody helping fund the structure.
Well, yeah,
but then we're also saying to our employees of the city that you have to help pay this.
Yeah. When you voted to raise the sales tax a year ago, you said people of Goodyear sacrifice, and they did. Mm-hmm. We have to make sure that everybody sacrifices, you, me, and all the employees. We all should be part of the sacrificing, and I think the city can do more in sacrificing. The workers, the you and me and the rest. But and if you do that and you can demonstrate that you're trying to share or spread that sacrifice, I believe that you would find that the people would be very amenable to a plan that would cost them in the near term, but would provide a greater city in the long term. I don't say they would. I just think they very well would be amenable to that. And I hate to miss that opportunity, because if we don't do something now.
Well, I don't believe that. There's far too many universities and colleges across this nation that could come to Goodyear for all the great things that this city has to offer. Just because it's not ASU or U of A,
Well, we found that two that were. Excuse me, go ahead.
I was going to say, but if you go with ASU is now the largest university in the nation. They're bigger than Ohio State now, and they've got an MBA. They've got a law. They've got a lot of degrees right there. I would like to try to find some way. I think you have a good point. We don't know how are we going to pay for the building. Where's that money going to come through? I'd like to flesh that out more, and I really haven't heard that. And then if we figure a budget, what is their impact going to be? I know you sent me the paper, and it seemed like it would be a positive impact, because we would then get more sales tax because people would come from other places to the university. It would bring more business, bring more construction, bring more permits. So it seems like, if we can get it here, and it doesn't even look like, realistically, is this going to be out of the 2010-11 budget anyway by the time they would build this? I mean, isn't it really going to be a whole nother year down the road by the time it goes through
more than that, probably.
permitting? So does it
the
hit with
problem
the bonds?
is that it's not going to bring financial economic benefit immediately, and immediately we're in trouble.
Yeah.
So that's I'm concerned. I disagree about there aren't any other universities out there as good as ASU, and I've always thought that there could be some schools which started to come to us from our smaller schools that are unique to the area, something that you can't get at another university. So I look at that. I think it's very interesting that we're talking about raising the property tax, because from the Budget Committee, from the people the Budget Committee has sent emails to. They are screaming, you're going to raise our taxes. And that came from the Budget Committee and their friends. What are you doing? And now we're up here saying, oh, not a problem. We're going to raise that property tax. Property tax you got to pay. You don't have to go out and buy a new car. You don't have to go out and buy that TV. You don't have to buy that nice new dress. You can minimize what you spend on sales tax, and that is the reason. And we said we had a date on it. Now, when we said we had a date out, the public comment is to me, oh, you'll never go by that. So you don't think that they're not going to come back with a sales tax and say, oh, you'll never rescind that. So these are my concerns.
Is there, I'm sorry, I just would like to look to some university that is going to bring something, bring an endowment, or bring something to help pay. 'Cause
You know, I'm not saying we're not going to continue looking at this.
Yeah, I'd just like to keep
When
looking.
I put this up to bring on the COAC, I wanted this to up and down right now with the extension of 36 months that we have by language. There's nothing saying that 36 months we can't look. But it will give us 36 months to see what the economy is doing, to see what's going on out there, to give us a little more security. And that's what I'm looking for.
But you don't have to do anything. You can just continue with what we're doing.
I
and
don't know.
budget it.
I
Yeah,
don't know.
well,
But I don't want any more
I don't
money
know,
spent.
'cause it's all to do with the budget.
We keep spending money to change the plan. I mean, we've gone from, I mean, as to your point, the last time we spoke, and my stupid analogy with the Lexus and the Toyota, I mean, we don't want it to be just an office complex. You know, we started off with an award-winning concept.
A vision.
Yes, a great vision, and you were part of that vision. We were all part of that vision, and we all loved that vision. It was an expensive vision, yes, but we continue to scale it down, scale it down, scale it down, and we can't go back and change that.
Now, we've lowered our
Once it's
expectations.
in the ground, yeah. Now, so I guess it comes to what is truly, because City Hall that we have right now is the office that we need currently, you know, but in the future, that's not going to be. And I still think that another year is not hurting us at all. You know, I still think that that gives you time to go out and do the things you're doing. It doesn't stop that at all. It doesn't stop giving management the
Every year
idea
to
to
look
go
at it.
out and say, put another RFP out there for universities to come with the land and not the other things, you know, because there was a question that didn't happen the last time. I mean, there's no
but
stopping
we
that.
found that didn't work, didn't we?
But I didn't think we put in the
We only
land.
did it one
I thought there
time.
was a difference in
Yeah.
the way
Land
it's
was not
structured.
in it.
Land was not in it. So I just think there was a structure difference.
But the land was there for the two universities that had the
And they
land, and
couldn't
they
afford
walked
it.
away.
Well, right.
And Frank, you're next. But I failed to mention one school that really wants to be here, and that's New Hampshire Institute of
Yes.
Art. So I just want to make sure that's
Which would be
understood.
good.
Frank, did you want to say something?
Yeah, well, my concern, we need to go after higher education. That's number one. There's no doubt about that, above all. And I think that within our budget, that we're missing a lot of things. I don't know, but when I go out and talk to other council members in other cities, I hear things about their expenditures, and then I hear things about ours. Just an example, and I don't know if it's in one example or two examples, it might be throughout the city. What do we spend for a new police car?
I
Just an
don't
example.
know.
Doesn't anybody know?
Chief here?
It's purchased through a pool.
We purchase through the state pool. Everybody pays the same price.
Everybody pays the same price? Every
the
city?
city, yeah.
All the cities pay?
All those that participate in the state pool, yes. And they all participate in the state pool.
That's the way I've heard it.
Can we
Yes,
bring
I've-
the chief up to address that?
Sure.
Could the chief please come up and address that?
Is he here?
Yeah, there he is.
here.
Mayor, Councilmember Cavalier, yes, we do buy from state bid our vehicles.
State
And
bid.
do all cities participate?
Correct.
And they cost what?
The actual cost, going to say,
Per
depending on
per
what we
vehicle.
buy, if we buy the Tahoe versus the Impala, you're looking at about probably $20,000 to $28,000 vehicle.
$28,000 vehicle.
Correct.
Okay. That's with everything on it?
No,
fully equipped?
that's the vehicle, and then they have to be equipped,
Bars, lights, okay.
which is probably about another $15,000 in equipment.
Because I heard that our vehicles cost pretty close to $45,000 once they're fully equipped.
That's probably,
That's probably pretty close, yeah.
And City of Phoenix doesn't pay near that, fully equipped. They're not equipped near the way ours are.
Most police vehicles are equipped in the same fashion.
I'm getting some bad information because what I'm hearing from other council members from other cities, that this is not their cost, and that, in fact, they knew what the cost of the Goodyear's police cars were, and they're much more expensive than some of the cars purchased with the City of Phoenix. Is that correct, or am I getting some bad information?
Mayor, Councilmember Cavalier, pretty much have the same type of vehicles, Impalas and Tahoes.
I know, but I mean with all the extra equipment.
And I don't know, I have no idea what Phoenix's vehicle is.
Well, I just wonder.
It's pretty standard equipment.
Yeah, and that's just one, I just wanted to use that as an example. But my concern is our expenditures in our budget. Are we overexpending? Is there money somewhere that could be taken out of there? Personnel is one thing, the mayor mentioned that. And there's other places where money could be taken out so that we could meet this budget thing a lot much easier than we are doing now and approach it with less pain. And if that is possible, I'd like to see us do that. But it's very difficult when we see the numbers we see, how you figure what goes where and what are we buying and what is this costing. All we see is this is the budget and it's going to cost us this much, and we're $2.8 million. What is it that we're over budget now?
we're not over budget.
We're not over budget, we're balanced.
Balanced?
Yeah.
So you got it balanced
Yes.
and everything, but we've taken from the contingency fund to
No,
balance
we
it?
have not.
And so everything is balanced?
That's correct.
Okay, so knowing that, then what is the problem with pursuing the city center or the universities, as the mayor is asking?
To me, that's a council decision.
I mean, what's the 36 months? In 36 months, the costs of construction may go sky high. Who knows? We don't know what the economy, but we ought to at least, of course, I don't know these numbers. Is this Langford and RKO Sports and all the people involved in this, is that their price for construction, or would they go out to?
This is their price. We've worked hand in hand with them to come up with these estimates, and this is the price that they have come up with.
To build?
Yes.
That's their cost.
Yes.
Now, will it be the same thing 3 years from now?
No, as we've shared with the council previously, the costs are going to go up significantly, and there's no kidding. I mean, they've
Plus, we have
already
to give
gone
them
up.
$500,000 if we don't
We have to return
Return.
500
return
that
$500,000.
that we have sitting in an account.
Right.
Yes.
If we don't go ahead.
In 3 years.
Can I just mention that we were all given this yellow paper, city report from the staff, frequently asked questions on compensation and benefit. And on the next to the last page, it does demonstrate to you across-the-board pay cuts to get $4 million on the general fund only. It goes across-the-board cuts of 15% all employees, employees below the minimum salary range, across-the-board cuts of 15% general fund employees only. So, yes, we have been given this information. We all have this yellow paper, and I think I don't have it. Unfortunately, April 9th, 2010, we were given this.
Oh,
And it also compares us on track with 10 other cities. So, yes, we have all had this information.
Can I add just a couple things? First thing, the problem I have with the plan is, I'm not sure we're out of this economic malaise. I really am. I hear that the recession is over and we're going up. And I think personally, the worst thing you can do right now is cut operating revenue to take on more debt. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, the Budget Committee suggested we don't take on any more debt. And I would rather wait till I feel more comfortable that we're out of this malaise, because I'm not sure we're having a U recession or a W recession. I mean, you see what's going on in Greece and a couple other things, and I just feel much more comfortable knowing that we're out of it as opposed to dipping into the general fund. Now, the other thing is the analogy I like to think is if I went home, and you might be wrong or what, but once you do the debt, you're stuck with it. If I went home tonight and said to my wife, I need to cut our operating budget, food, maybe pool, et cetera, so I can go buy a new car. Well, once I buy the new car, I can sell the new car if it gets bad enough where I need the revenue to operate my household. We build a city center and things turn around and it's hard to go down. We're stuck with the city center. So I feel more comfortable not taking on new debt at this time, because I'm not sure what's going on out there. I don't feel comfortable. I don't know if the others feel comfortable, but I'm not comfortable we're out of this mess.
Well, going back to the universities, what about, we haven't even talked about, or even, I don't know if staff's even working on this, an RFP to bring more, to ask more universities to take a look at us.
We have suggested that to the council, and that we're waiting to hear back from the
You're
council.
waiting to hear back from us?
Yes.
Okay.
We have suggested
Well, I
that,
think
though.
we need
That's
to go
what we
out
are
and do that.
proposing.
Because I think there's universities, in fact, I know possibly of one, that would come in here, if we give them land, they've got the money to build. And if they have it, there are others that have it. So it's out there. It is out there. But they're not going to come in to a place, to a city, where city council, or where the appearance of the city council is that they're not all in favor of it, and they're not all working together on it. And I'm afraid that that's the appearance that we're giving them now. So I think we have to be careful
I
with
think
that.
you know, the thing of it is, when we started this city center plan, we had a great vision, and we've taken a definite turn in this. I mean, a definite turn. In my opinion, we're no longer drafting this as a vision that we drafted with the specific area plan, and the people of the city crafted that. We really have lowered our expectations for the city center, and that concerns me. And we were going to build this, Mayor, and I can remember you telling me this. We're going to build a unique center unlike anything else in the valley. It was going to be a gathering center for all ages. We were going to do an architectural design, and it's been compromised. We were going to build a great library. It's been compromised. And we've compromised the center of the city park. The central city has asked for a park over and over and over again. And what have we done now? We have reduced it to an inactive 40-acre space. Inactive, excuse me. That bothers me a little bit. So, and then we formed this new committee, and I was hesitant at first, but they've come out with some pretty good suggestions. And they say, don't take on any new debt. Whoa, okay. So now I'm going to take on some new debt right away. So I just have a problem with it. And I was the one in the beginning of this discussion said we must do this because cost of construction is lowered. And so I was for this. But with the state situation, the state government and their budget, I just think we're to do this year and make this decision. I think we're shooting off the gun too soon. I'm for continuing looking at universities, but let's be honest with them. Let's tell them what the time frame is. Let's tell them what kind of money. Let's come up with a plan. What can we do? We never talked about financing those universities. So when the few of us that said, hark, I don't want to do this, I don't want to finance it, everybody said, oh, well, they just don't like universities. They just don't like education. So now I'm hung with this big cloud over my head that says I don't like upper education, and that's not true. But what I would like to see is some unique education come to the city that the other cities don't have, that will draw students that can't get it from another university. Thank you.
You know, I was as enthusiastic as you were relative to having a civic center, and I've been on this council now for almost 12 years. And every year that's gone by, we've looked at the city center, we're going to build it, we're going to build it, we're going to build it. Next year, we're going to build it. We're in the same situation. We're going to build it. When? We cannot, under the current financial circumstances, nationwide, and particularly concerns this city, afford this type of investment at the present time. I don't see any avenue, okay, that is being presented here tonight that would make me vote for a civic center that's being proposed at the present time. I don't think it's fair on the residents of this city to impose on them a debt that we don't know that's where it's going to go. And as Joe pointed out, we don't know what's going to happen in the economics of this country. The countries in Europe are suffering. They're on the verge of probably bankruptcy if it weren't for the international fund to help them out. I hope it helps them out. Otherwise, that's going to come out of this country, and we are going to be in dire need for money. Let me tell you, that's what it looks like. So I'm not satisfied with it, not in the least. Thank you,
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, I would like to get an RFP out there, look for it, let them know we can, the land or whatever we can do, look at private, look at small universities, look at everyone. And I want to see a nice city center. I want to see a library. I don't want to see an office building. And I also don't want to, I understand the property tax theory here, and it's not really a tax of your outflow. I understand that. But I think if you're a retired couple and you've paid off your house, your tax is technically going up because that's all you pay, or your escrow is going up. And I just can't see doing that right now, because I agree with Joe. I think we are possibly looking at another wave of foreclosures, another wave of resets, another wave. And until we actually see unemployment go down, until we actually start see building actually pick up, and I know John was saying there's, what, 20 building permits or 40 building permits was a
48 last
48. That's not really good. And I understand that the mayor's 100% right with the fact we need to get it in here as soon as possible. And I don't want to say a 36-month deadline, we're waiting 36 months and not doing anything. I like the fact that it sounds like everyone wants to keep looking at it, looking at ideas. You know, if we put up the billboards, put that in an escrow account. I don't know the city. I'm new to this, so I'm not sure exactly what you can do, but save some money. Let's get some money in the kitty for this and start saving if we do savings. I don't want to see, like I asked a lot of questions last time about who we compare to in salaries. I know you're going to go through that in a few minutes. You know, our citizens, most of them live here. You know, cutting salaries, that's another wave of, you know, people that can't afford their house. Fire has talked to us. They've already let go of their uniform allowance, and those are the costs that those guys have to bear, men and women have to bear. So I don't see cutting. If we need to cut expenses, I'd like to see something that cuts overhead, like the 4-day work week or something like that, that people's salaries aren't cut and we're still functioning. So I want to see the city center. I'm 100% on board. I'm 100%. I think the mayor's 100% right with regard to the universities. I just don't see the money. And if someone can find the money that we're not going in more in debt, you got me, but I just don't see it.
Well, we certainly, Sherry, cannot move ahead with the situation the way it is right now. And our concern about the economy throughout the nation and the world is certainly a valid concern. But, you know, we just can't let that stop us from trying to be creative and moving ahead. If you want to be a great city, you move through these events, and that's what we have to do. Regarding the property tax, if in fact we had a property tax, it would be for the increase would be for a specific purpose, clearly identified in the voters' initiative or resolution, whatever it would be. So it's certainly upfront, and it can only be successful, I think, if there's a corresponding reduction in other costs of government. So that's how I feel about that. What I tried to do was just find a way to utilize a financing technique which allows us to bond and allows us to do it in a credible, fairly, I think, way that's relatively safe. It isn't going to happen. I don't know if it can happen next year or not. It isn't going to happen, obviously, through this fiscal year. But I think it's something that we don't want to put on the back burner. And it's not because of the City Hall. It's because of my fear is losing the higher ed. And that's what I really have to hang my hat on that one. That's where we need to be as a city. I think, in the future. Leave it to those who follow us, that this is a city that people of all ages, all interests seek to become a member of that community, gathering place for those types of people who want to be active, who want to be educated, who want to move forward. And if we worry about today to the exclusion of tomorrow, tomorrow will not be very desirable, in my opinion.
I have a question. When is the next election for council? What is the date? Is that?
A year from
March.
Yeah.
So if you put it on the ballot to ask the public, that would cost us the least amount because we're already going to do election. Is that correct?
Yes.
Ask them what?
If they want their property tax raised. The mayor was saying.
Well, no, I understand.
The mayor was saying
With-
take it out to the public, and if you did that, you'd have not to cost us an additional election.
To do it at the same
Right,
time.
And that's how you would do it.
But
You
would
put it
you
on
be
that.
putting on with it as lowering sales tax at the same time, or just flat out
Well, I
asking the property tax?
I haven't made that
I mean,
decision
you've
yet.
got plenty of time to
Yeah,
think
because,
about it.
I'm not sure about the numbers. I think that you get far more money with the property tax than you do with sales tax, but I don't know that. And we'll know that. In a year, we'll see another accumulation of it and have more information.
Well-
I'm just asking.
Well, it has to be more than that. You can't just ask people if they want to if they want an increase in sales tax. There has to be a lot of work done to say what you want to do, and then use that and say, do you want, or would you increase a sales tax or a property tax to get this done? This is what was done with the ballpark. We didn't just, the council make a decision to build a ballpark. We went to the people, and the people overwhelmingly said, yes, we want the ballpark.
But did they
But
know
that
it
was
was
at
going to
10
be at the
million.
cost it was?
Yeah, not
Because
at
we just went for a
180.
bond.
Only the 10 million was
Only
approved.
10
by-
million did they
That's
vote
right.
on.
But
so-
they said, yes, we want a ballpark.
But it
10
costs us
million.
more than that.
Yeah,
Doesn't matter.
But I agree with
the way
you.
you do it.
I'm agree with you. I'm not saying.
Just go out
you-
and say, do you want
I'm
to
not
raise
saying,
taxes?
you didn't even, I didn't mean that, and you, in your hearts of heart, no, I didn't mean that. If you're going to go out on a increase in property tax, you're going to tell the public what you want to do with it.
Exactly.
We wouldn't be that, we just wouldn't do that to the public. So to assume that is absolutely wrong. So I'm just saying, if you wanted to do it, it gives a time cost for the city. It doesn't cost the taxpayer to pay for another election. So I'm just throwing that out.
Well, I would not have agreed to any tax to higher education for a public university without our citizens' go-ahead. I would not, period.
Public or private?
Public. Well, I mean, because they're already paying it, so then they'd be paying it again on top of, so I would not do that. But as I stand right now, I have no problem, I think, going out for another RFP, talking to universities again. I think that's a good idea. There's not a huge expense on that part. We're not promising anything. We're telling them we have land. And I don't think anybody across this nation right now is going to think poorly of our city, that we are being conservative with our funds, but letting them know this is what we have and this is what the city of Goodyear is about and why you want to be in the city. There's nothing wrong with that. But as for this year, I will not agree to any beyond the items that was stated to us that were, in a sense, emergency pieces, for public safety and the phone system, the 911, I understand those expenses. But beyond that, I will not put the city into further debt because we haven't even been able to take care of the ballpark expense yet.
But we are not proposing new debt for those projects either.
Well, a majority of them were,
User fees, yeah. Impact fees.
Well, there was a couple
We've already
that were-
collected impact fees to pay for those projects. And then there's some general funds going into
that's
those
what it
projects.
was, general funds.
But
I don't
not new debt.
I don't have a problem with another RFP. As an adjunct professor, I'm for the vision. I just don't think the money's there. That's just where we differ there, Mayor. I have no problem going out for an RFP because I'm a proponent of education. So I don't think there's anything to lose to go out and check, see what's out there.
Why don't we, before we do that, strategize, how do we want to use that 100 acres? I mean, it may be that we don't want to give a college 30 acres this time. We really need to think through this, and if we could develop a plan over the next several months,
Gee, that would be.
raising revenue, cutting costs, terminating the increase in sales or tax, whatever it is, at a certain time based on a certain achievement, for example, permitting, number of permits, the people might find that something that they can actually consider and seriously respond to. But if we're going to do anything, it isn't a matter of raising property tax. It isn't just a matter of reducing another tax. It's a matter of a strategy that makes sense, that involves creative financing, that involves an end, not we'll look at it again, but it will end upon the time we get 1,200 permits or whatever. I'm saying 1,200. I don't know what it would be. But and that way, you're taking, as you acquire this additional revenue, what you're talking about, and that's what you talked about, Sherry, I think, you're taking this additional revenue and you're already targeting it to a specific purpose. So
I don't have a problem with that.
I think that would make sense. But it's got to involve staff. I think it should involve the private sector looking at this. We got this group.
But it's not going to cost us money. We're not going to go out and spend another
yeah.
whatever million. I don't know what it costs us to do the whole city center
No,
project
no.
in the first place. I don't want to see us spending any money on reinventing the wheel all over
there's
again.
6 others here that, you know.
Well, no. I understand that. I'm not.
But I don't see us spending any money.
Okay. That's. I don't think 6 others
Basically,
would care about that then.
we have a plan which we're going to modify and see how, in fact, what is the best way for this city to integrate education, business, the public sector, all in a smart, and a park, all in one smart way. And from that, you determine how much money we need and what are the ways to get it. And once you come up with the best way, then you go to the people and ask them.
So the scope that we already have, that we thought was a viable idea, would change then. Because things have just changed anyway. Because our financial outlooks have changed and money across the nation has changed. Is that why we're going to change? Or are we just going to change the 30 acres? I mean, I thought that
We're talking about the 100 acres.
Right.
This has to be
Actually, it's
discussed.
140 acres.
This has to be discussed.
We own 140 acres there. And how best to utilize those 100. Remember, we thought we were going to put 2 colleges on 60.
Yeah.
And then ASU and Franklin Pierce determined the best thing for them was to be part of the 40. So the 30 and 30 went away for immediate use by the colleges. We may not want that for colleges.
Is that affordability on that? I thought that was one of our affordability issues, that we brought it in on the main 40 acres because we couldn't afford anything
No,
other than
it wasn't
that.
necessarily affordability. They wanted to
They
be.
wanted to do that.
They wanted to be where everybody else was. They wanted to be a compact area.
Do you think we need to do that before we send out an RFP, though?
I do.
You do?
Because I
Because
don't
what
know
if they
what
come back and say, oh,
Up a plan.
I want something
offer
different,
them?
though?
What if
Okay.
you-
You want to be able to,
I'm not sure we can offer them anything right now. I'm not sure this year that we could come up with a financial plan or anything to offer them. I understand you want to keep this alive, and I'm not killing it. I'm just saying this year, I don't see it. And we can certainly be working on this, but we don't.
Well, my question is, why can't we get started on this?
Yeah,
Why we
don't
have
we
to hold
start
off?
it now and plan to have a vote of the public in March? How does the public foresee its future Goodyear? And it's going to be in that 140 acres. And we've got this group that I worked with Dave Vallette and a couple others, Mike Kayak. These are people who are dedicated to success. And bring in the staff, get Langford, and let's brainstorm for a while to see what's the best way to use that 140 acres. And how do we finance this thing? Look at that. And it may be that we can do this in a way that the taxpayers will find desirable. It may be that they won't. But I think we need to study it as an integrated package, not just as education or as public, but the bringing together. The education and the public sectors of this need that private sector. They need the offices there. They need a way for other people to generate revenue.
Well, and I agree with you that information did not come in until much later.
What's that?
the information on what the colleges wanted and what they needed. And so that was, a majority of it came in late, so it never really got into the specific area plan or the master plan or any of that. So we did miss all of that information. It came in, and then it kind of got hodgepodge very quickly, try to make it work. So, I agree with you. I understand you wanting to make a comprehensive plan, bringing it all in.
But not go out and pay for it.
Yeah.
We've already worked on it for years. We should be able
But
to use that.
we've learned things
Yeah.
as we've gone along.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, if I may, we have a public hearing
Okay.
advertised for 6 p.m.
All right.
We can either put this off till the 17th, because we don't have that much on the agenda for next week, or we can continue this, whatever.
I just soon put it off. How about the rest of you?
Now, the vote that's coming up
Wait a
tonight,
minute,
what does that?
you've got something-
what does
Oh,
that-
that's on the agenda.
Okay, so in that,
Well, a public hearing, so it has to start at 6.
No, that we're going to do. We're going to have our regular meeting now.
Yeah.
The question is, do you want, John, after our regular meeting, do you want to get together again and have this briefing, or do you want to do it in a week?
Right.
Correct?
Week is fine.
Yeah, I think it's important to do the policies and whatever, so we can probably spend a lot more time on that. So this took an hour, I'm guessing that's going to take a while, so probably next 17th would probably be, I'm with the 17th. Because I got a feeling that the next one's going to be longer than this one, so.
When will we actually see the
I'd like
budget?
to know how much time we've spent on this issue down through the years.
On City Center?
Yes. Time, hours, hours.
Not enough. We haven't solved it yet.
Okay.
Let's-
36
solve it.
months, you could just use the 36th one.
Oh, it's been like 5 years. I was pregnant on that committee. My daughter's in first grade now.
2004, Sherry, we started the city center meetings, 2004.
Will everybody let the city manager speak? He's trying to answer my question.
Frank, I believe that we will see the budget on the 24th of May,
That'll be the first time we see it.
the actual budget.
We won't have time to study it beforehand.
I don't know. I'll have to see if we can get it out sooner.
Because,
So what's the result? We're going to push it back to the 17th?
I think so, yes. 17th?
17th?
Fine by me. How about the rest of you?
Good.
yeah, because I won't be here the 17th. I will be here the 24th, though. Okay, so it doesn't matter.
Thank you. That's fine.
Meeting's not, is it adjourned? I guess it is, isn't it? We'll start up our